We're ready. So, welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz, and this is...
I'm Sean.
There we go. This is Sean. Actually, Sean, how is St. Pete?
So we're recording this live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and it's popping. I love St. Petersburg. I mean, it's like such a cool vibe here. There's always like young people doing stuff. There's always lots of business stuff going. I mean, I've already been to 3 networking events. I've already gotten a few cards here.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy. It's kind of an easy place if you're going to get started creatively wise.
Yeah. On that note, you actually... went immediately to co-working spaces. What I really pro move right there, just like immediately signed up for the co-working space.
Yeah.
And like apparently that worked out well so far. But what are the topics that we prepared for today? Because like we're prepared apparently.
Apparently we're prepared. So with all the crazy stuff going on and like things like Kanye West's world and just in the world in general, I think we've seen a lot in the last few years, this kind of political correctness and this kind of where like you're allowed to say certain things but you're not allowed to say certain things. You're allowed to do things if it's witty, but if it's not witty then it's not cool. And so I wanted to talk about creativity and political correctness today, and then also maybe just dive into things like about this podcast. I feel like we've had 18 episodes. This is the 18th episode.
This is crazy.
So like, I think it would help our viewers to even just kind of talk and reflect on like, how has it been for us? What have we thought? Like what's been some of the challenges? What do we hope going forward?
Well, yeah. Or tips for podcasting. Maybe that would be a thing I would say.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's jump right into it. Like apparently we all hear the news and Kanye West, I have problems with his name, is popping up. I was not sure why he's popping up. I was like, something happened. We got to dive into that. And then I'm like, oh boy. And apparently it got so bad. I don't know if you heard about that, but even Google banned like some of the interviews from Google Drive. Basically, they're deleting footage from the Google Drive. And what is like, for me, a major problem, because like if you upload to a hard drive, that stuff should be mine. Nobody should be watching it. Nobody should have any control over it besides me. But Google is deciding, like, nope, we're taking every podcast, any version of that, and basically just delete it.
So when you say that, I guess, do you mean a YouTube they're deleting it, or do you mean like I have a version of this in my drive, my Google Drive, and they're deleting it out of my drive just because it exists?
Exactly.
Huh.
What is like, I think like that alone is like, okay, this wants me to stack up the hard drives and makes me trust social media less. Obviously, they have a good point. Like, you want to summarize what he did? He was a bad boy, apparently.
Well, and it's the artist formerly known as Kanye West. He, over the years, he's said a lot of shocking things. He's done a lot of shocking things. We don't need to go in that. I mean, there's hundreds there. I mean, only to be rivaled by Donald Trump, I would say. He's just said so many things over the years it's upset people, but I think what's really made him bite the dust now is the anti-Semitism. It's his anti-Jewish stance. He has started to blame a lot of things on Jewish people, and he has started to talk in a very anti-Jewish way. And so for obvious reasons, the community at large is not happy with that.
Yeah.
And so, it's been insane to see how many people have dropped him, across the board.
Yeah. So also Adidas was deciding like, we kind of have the rights to sell your shoes without you because we have the patent for like the design and whatever, and it's very interesting. So he's basically losing out, and basically everything is getting shut now for him, and he will be the next Andrew Tate. I don't know if you follow that, but he said he actually on the flip side didn't say too many bad things, but he got completely pulled from the internet. Like he did not pull a Kanye West thing, but he still got completely deleted from the internet, and like no Facebook, no Instagram, no any social media, and he's still somewhat there for like, hey, I'm on somebody else's podcast, what is like pretty good for him, but it's extreme how much power they have now.
Well, yeah, and I think it does bring up a really good question of like, if this can happen to Kanye West, can that happen to us, right?
Yeah.
Can you be deplatformed just for saying something that's not popular? Can you be kind of You just changed all the lighting in this podcast.
Oh, you wanted to hear the cat crying?
Oh man. So but yeah, so I think like it can happen to any of us, and it is scary. I don't necessarily like the idea that we could say something even on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
We could say something that's deemed wrong by the society, and they could dismantle our whole lives.
That's not even the thing. It's AI. It's like nobody has time to source and watch all that content that gets uploaded. Humans in general are saying a lot of dumb stuff, and if that gets to scale, it's very dangerous, like you say one couple of words and like, oh, it gets a platform and we're like associated to that, so they don't even take any chances. And it's like, oh, you say a couple buzzwords, like you have to be very careful with what words we're using technically, or we maybe just like get shut down, what it's like.
Yeah, so to kind of take it out of yay world is during COVID you really because there's almost these two different problems, right? So there's like what Kanye West just did is he's saying something that's very anti-Semitic, and it's not even what he's saying is necessarily like he's being Hitler or anything. He's not telling people to do bad things to Jewish people. However, people kind of use it as a jumping board to do bad things. Yeah. But then, like during COVID, it was like a different thing where you had a lot of like scientists that were posting things like, "Hey, this was definitely in a lab," or things like that. And it wasn't like they were trying to cause it, but they also got deplatformed. Like the Weinstein brothers, who are great. Yeah. They have their own podcast. They're great scientists, and they got deplatformed just for being wrong.
You know what is a fear right now of mine? All those words are the buzzwords that get flagged. So you cannot even mention them technically on YouTube. That is the rule for like, if you're a bigger content creator, you don't say those words. And because like it triggers the algorithm. So I have to actually change and post like now for the A word and then the C word. And I'm just like, this is not freedom of speech kind of sort of anymore.
Well, exactly. I think that's the problem where this all starts to be is like, yeah, do you feel safe to even talk about anything? Like when there's words we cannot say, like then it sounds like James Orwell or George Orwell, my bad. And and it's not good. So in some ways though, it's like if it creates violence though, do you think they should be deplatformed? Like if you're calling for violence towards people, do you think that's enough to kind of?
It's a weird balance. Like even in Germany right now, there was a guy driving with his car with a Z on there and driving through, got 4,000 euros as a punishment he had to pay, and he has to work like a whole day to earn $50. I forgot how it was, but basically, oh, you had a letter on your car and now you have to pay a fine because like this is now against the law. I did not know there was a law like that, and they just changed the law like 2 weeks ago or something like that. And it's, how do you call it when you roll up a country, or like basically it's like there was a law that is like trying to prevent like people getting in a rolled up mode and just like whatever. But that was like, oh, so you changed the law without anybody knowing, and now this is now suddenly forbidden, and it's like, oh, now he has to pay a fine. Obviously, it's kind of correct that you shouldn't take a pro stand for like a negative thing, but you should be allowed to have your own opinion. And it's just like there should be clear rules what you can say and what you shouldn't say, kind of, but that gets into a gray zone.
Well, what's interesting with Germany is that they the whole idea of freedom, free speech is new in Germany, right? Like Germany
it doesn't really exist, what is really weird, because there's like things you can't say and you can get fined for. But now they added something to that, and it's like there's like certain letters that you cannot put into like your license plate. There's like things you cannot say and do, or you get fined. And
well, it's very interesting because Germany was a fascist country, so it's like for a long time the rules were made by the government. So I mean I think it's just interesting that they're even as democratic as they are now. But I'm sure that there's these like weird things in Germany that you still see that they're like, oh, they can just do that and they don't need a vote. They just so and just for everyone at home, so when he said Z, that's the Z that's been really defined in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and so having a car with that Z on it driving through Germany, I mean, I could see how that upsets people, because I think in Germany they're worried about what happens next. Germany is like kind of the border between the East and the West, so
there's still a little bit buffer, but there's not much buffer.
Not much, not when you're talking about Poland and all these other small economies. economy countries. No.
Yeah, no, that's
Germany's the first major country that would be in the way, really.
Yeah. So yeah, this episode already makes me feel very uncomfortable. So I need your help right now, Sean, and you guys' help as well. So please hit the like button and subscribe. But Sean, you're saying the Z word, the Z word, and J word. All those, I need that separately, so I have a snippet.
What? All of the bad words?
Yeah, no, just like a Z word, Z word, and whatever.
I don't know. You just asked me to say a bunch of offensive words.
No. Like don't say them. Say them as I did. Like Z word.
Z word. No, I'm not gonna do that. No.
Well, then I have to do that. Sorry. I wanna keep this podcast alive. It's that bad apparently with the internet. What is very sad.
God, we're gonna lose our 20 views if I keep talking.
Well, or the platform that maybe gets you money.
See, I don't know. That's the thing. Is like you don't even know that for a fact. Like,
I do know that for a fact.
Like I don't. I feel like let's do this as an experiment. Let's see what happens because I feel like there's this fear that's been generated that like even earlier we were talking about a video off camera about using a song on a non-monetized video. And how that'll maybe get muted and things, and it won't. I mean, unless it's monetized.
I'm very, very knowledgeable about that. I'm very sure about that. 100%. Like, if you post certain things like on YouTube, you're right. They cannot be monetized and they can stay up there. But if you upload certain things to Facebook, for example, they just mute it. And sometimes YouTube mutes that too. So they can pick and choose. So it's the artist also. You basically pop up in their like feed, and there's a section in the feed like, oh, somebody else used your content, like same footage or same audio. And if you're a bigger creator, and you basically get listed, and that's like one of the things that I want to avoid, kind of for the clients. So that's why I'm like giving them two versions, kind of. But I'm very sure about that.
Well, on an episode about political correctness, we're here debating the political correctness of this show. So apparently we want to be very politically correct.
No, we don't want to get banned.
And use any possibly offensive terminology. So
isn't that messed up?
Yeah, and makes it pretty much impossible to talk about the subject, right? Z word, things like that. That's, I don't know. It's like then we're just breaking down language. Then there's the argument of why even talk about it. You know
so what is also really good thing, like in Germany now, the letter Z seems to be banned because they already banned like a couple, like the double S. They banned like certain like numbers, that reference like a certain time. What is kind of crazy because like if you have a license plate, you have those numbers sometimes, by accident, and it's forbidden and you can get fined for it. What is like this?
And I guess I'm just interested. I guess don't say the words, but what were the words I said that were wrong? Like because Z is just the Latin for Z, so that's
the J was like the Jew. Then the C word is COVID.
And Jewish people are a people.
Yeah, I know, but it's that
like
bad.
People that think Mexican is like a bad word. No, that's a country.
Yeah, but that is the thing, like where you're like, it will pop up in the AI, like, oh, they talk about that, and we don't want to take a risk.
Because I just feel like that's feeding into it. I guess that's where I think is like, then because it almost feels like we're being anti-Semitic then, because we can't even say Jew, we can't say we can't say a people, we can't say. Then it's like, why say Muslim? Why say Christian? Why say like? Because it's almost like we're doing the bad work then, because Jewish people shouldn't be hidden away. Oh, we can't say that word.
I know, isn't. Just like I said, like it's like kind of weird. Like there's like in YouTube, for example, there's a subsection that is like depending on what type of content you do, you're adult content or you're not content, but you don't get shown that criteria, because if they show you the criteria, what meets this standard, then people would abuse the system. And there's like certain things that they cannot tell you, but indirectly tell you, and you get ranked differently. So if you are like ranked as adult content, not in the pre-selection thing, there's another segment on there that determines how many views you get, what is the recommendation, how risky you are. And there's so many things that are like associated, especially with small channels. If you're a small channel, you basically run a big risk of like getting just canceled because the risk is too great to have some strangers talking some weird shit on the internet.
So I guess like just for people at home and for me really, how does this process work? Let's say I get in trouble. I said Jew, which is a terrible word. Apparently we can't.
There's also like suicide, whatever. You cannot say those words either. Like you get immediately flagged. You get like the COVID banner and whatever. You just mention it, pops up down there. Stuff like that. There's like so many things. It's like.
So do we get a COVID banner even if we don't talk about COVID?
Sometimes by bad luck, because it's determined by AI. So it's like you don't know how well it works. That is the scary part. It's like you can put it into review and hope that a human will watch it and like, okay, but by an hour-long content, they just don't. You see what I mean?
It just sounds like, I don't know. And I honestly, for having a podcast, I mean, it's interesting you guys are seeing this live because this is kind of a little meta on our own podcast. We
did not plan this, to be honest.
Well, I planned a little bit, but I think, it's just hard because like, what are those words? And those words will keep changing, right? And like, and if we boil down things that we say to what we think people will like and will get us engagement, then I feel like we're losing out on a lot of the kind of the fun, the kind of
the authenticity,
because I know
the
I like
human experience, everything. Yeah.
And that's the interesting stuff is like when people are debating and when you get to watch that as a viewer, you get to kind of be like, I'm too scared to talk about this in public, but then you get to have people talk about it. I don't know. I feel like there's so much lost there. And there's almost the argument of like, while engagement is king and we all just want to bow down to impressions. But what is the importance of that then? I mean, really? Exactly.
So that is a big problem with like, I think social media in general, and it gives too much power to, just a couple people, like you can be banned, deplatformed, you can be whatever. And it's very meta right now talking about that because it's so backwards. But to basically talk about this list that actually exists, because there was a YouTube channel and they are basically having, they tested a couple words and they just uploaded a ton of words and like different words said, different words, whatever. And they saw how that performs basically, and they generated like a big list that will get you flagged and like rated and whatever. And I think it's like 10,000 words or something like that, and it's bonkers. And it's not an official list, but it's a tested list. What happens if you say that in this video kind of situation? And I forgot like which the channel was, but they basically made that open source and you could look at it. But YouTube cannot tell you what the list is because then people will play the system.
See, that's one thing I don't like about all of these platforms. They really like to hide behind their own algorithms are their property, and we got to keep it secret from you, but it's going to affect you, but then we're going to keep it secret from you. And how it all works is just, I think one of the ones recently that's gotten a lot of flack is Instagram, for example, where that algorithm is just changing daily. And anyone that says they have it figured out is lying to you, period. Nobody actually knows. They'll be like, oh, clips, reels, this thing, that thing. Yeah, sure. 10 hashtags versus none versus 100.
Yeah.
Like no one actually knows. And that's all on purpose. And that kind of makes me mad. I almost feel like these companies should, hopefully Elon Musk, which by the way, this is also news. Last night, Elon Musk reportedly did finalize the Twitter deal behind closed doors. It is officially happening. He owns Twitter as of last night. This is being recorded October 28th, so that will be October 27th. He owned Twitter, and nice. We'll see when this comes out.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very interesting because I would really like to see Elon really push back. Like, no, we're going to release the algorithm publicly. We're going to make it out there so everyone knows and everyone even has a say. Because I mean, these things are gateways for society. So why does society not have any say? I mean, that's kind of the weirdness here.
But I think like one of the problems is like the law. Like there's a safe harbor law, for example, when you upload music and whatever, and the website has to say like, oh, we did not know that you did that, And if they claim they know, then they're liable,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like laws are weird, and I think like this is like a very bad thing, but that's what comes with the territory. You know?
Well, there is like no social media law, right? I think we're using kind of free speech laws, which I think do like, they still apply. I just feel like
they though? It's a company, so it's like they can say whatever they want, and they have to please advertisers. The more advertisers they have, the more money they make, the more profitable, but the more like PC they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, we have like a really like unique problem with the internet, right? Since the dawn of the internet, it's somehow been mostly free to use. I mean, other than you being able to connect to the internet itself is free. And how do websites pay for the server space and stuff is through ads and ad revenue, right? So since the dawn of the internet, at least Web 2.0, it's all been ad generation. If there wasn't ads, there would be no internet, there'd be no YouTube, there'd be no Facebook. If there was no ad revenue, there'd be nothing to pay the bills to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And I think though we're getting to a place slowly that we're like, why are we letting ads control the entirety of the internet? Like, we're starting to see that the internet is vast, and like in 10, 20, 30 years is going to double, triple in size, and even not what it is now.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
as we enter Web 3.0, where Web 3.0 is essentially where we're creating the stuff that's not really curated on servers. Now the server's in your house, you're creating things, you're serving things.
Somebody has to start that system though. So, and I'm like not sure when that starts, because like technically this is already doable. Nobody did it, and it's
well, what's interesting is the pay gates. That's where I see some interesting movement, right? The Patreons, the OnlyFans, you can go to these places, you can say whatever you want. It can be as inappropriate as you want, and nobody can tell you no. Nobody can take down your content. It's not going to hurt your engagement saying certain things.
Yeah.
But then you have to generate the revenue.
Isn't that then already the dark web? Because like on the one side, I like the idea of everything centralized, and it's basically like what is a LimeWire kind of situation. Everything's stored on your computer. And if somebody wants to use it, it's like LimeWire for like the internet, for videos, for anything and everything. But that already exists. It's the dark web, and that is not really encouraged by the big companies, because they don't like the fact that you can just go there and do that, and it's illegal. So I think like most of the stuff is owned by like Google, Facebook, whatever. Even the phones, the big companies, they have to decide if they let you put that on your phone, So I'm like, I don't know if Web3 is doable as is, because it would be just like the dark web.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, like, so the dark web is, it was a lot about
illegal stuff.
Yeah, illegal stuff. I mean, and most of it, I think, was, just giving things away, stealing things, like stealing content, getting movies, getting stuff for free. Where what we're talking about is just words and pictures that you're sharing, and that hurting you. And so that I don't view that as the dark web. I mean, obviously that was.
But you could say that though now, because like if you think about it, like in Germany, you want to say the Z word, like the. How do you call it again? Z word or whatever.
I think it's just Z. Yeah, I think it's all.
Yeah, you want to discuss a couple topics. By law, it's kind of forbidden, and now you're just like, what? And the only way where you can see it is on the dark web, just because official made a law that is like whatever. It's in contrast to like freedom of speech and all those other things.
Yeah, well,
which is weird,
It is weird. I mean, we see it all the time, like from the outside. When you look at China, for example, you see that they can just shut down anything at any time. Anything, even today, there was a thing about Mao, and it's not anywhere in China. Like nobody knows about it. It's not like it's not. So you see that all the time, and it sounds like Germany is not quite to the U.S. level, where it almost sounds like they also will just shut stuff down.
More.
Who even knows? It could be to the political level. I think that's when it gets scary for me, is where you should be able to talk crap about a president or someone. I think that's when it gets really scary, is when that stuff gets taken down and that stuff gets hurt.
It is a weird time. I personally, like, I was like thinking, are we already like on the same level as China? And we just don't know, because like in China, there's people, they think everything is great. There's literally people that are like, this is great, as long as you have the right mindset,
Yeah.
And if you accidentally stumble into a path that is not aligning with like our overlords, Google and Facebook and whatever, you kind of disappear from the internet,
Yeah. And I don't know. So to get to your point about like, what is Web3 and how does that help this? Like, how does that help this thing? I think it does when we can start to, because right now you're seeing that like server space essentially is even getting cheaper, like vastly cheaper. And I think even the idea, like right now you can buy like a RAID server for yourself for $300, which is insane. 10 years ago, that would have been $1,500, $2,000. And before that it'd been 10 grand, 20 grand. And so even your ability to have server space, even your ability to do all that is getting easier and easier. So I don't know. I would like to hope that like maybe someday, I don't know, and this is kind of far out there if someone can really develop this, but like you have your own, like the idea of a social network even changes, where it's like you're not in a space that's owned by Facebook, but why don't you create your own social network and somehow, and this is all just, I don't have the answers to all these questions, but like how then somehow promoting that out to the world. So like we have the infinite creative platform.
So on that note, like I think you need to create like that LimeWire that is socially accepted to use, because it's like, okay, if you use this app, it is basically like, oh, you can see content of any type, and it's the web free, and it's like a browser, and maybe it has to be a website that is allowing you to visit so that you have like a portal that you can access from every device. That's what you kind of need. It's like a browser, and then you basically can do whatever. But somebody has to build the infrastructure that is socially accepted and the norm. Because you could just make a dark website, that is not really listed, but if you have the address, you can make your own social media page there, and it's like your website or whatever.
Right, and you've kind of seen that, right? So you see like the kind of I forget what the far right came out with, but you have
Bumble? No, not Bumble. That's a dating website.
That's a dating website. Wow.
I'm not really good with that.
It says a lot about Fitz's GOP connections there, but no, I mean, but no, it's I think that's, but you do see that. You've seen that people start their own social network. Even Trump started his own social network once he got kicked off of Twitter. So you do see that kind of push of like, well, fine, I'll just start my own. Yeah. And if you have the money and the team, you can. I think that's half of it. Is you and I, we don't have this like bandwidth to be able to do anything. Where Google has thousands of employees and a gajillion
but look at
dollars.
Look at us. We're actually having our own show. A couple camera angles. We're doing fancy shenanigans. I'm like, well, tools that we have right now, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to get easier and easier and easier to kind of control the flow of stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Now with that too, you're seeing like a proliferation of a lot of people doing it, right? So a lot of people podcast now. Everyone podcasts because it's getting easier, and so what's interesting too, and I think we can kind of transfer to a new topic even with this of like the idea of like how do you push the boundaries and like when everyone can do it. Yeah, like what is the next thing? And like, should you be exploring that or should you try to perfect what everyone else is doing? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So it's a really interesting concept because like, let's spin the wheel like Andrew Tate does. He got kicked off social media and he's basically like, let's basically reinvent social media for myself. So I'm banned from all the major platforms. How do I get people buy my course? Yeah. It's like kind of like, okay, how to make money on the internet and being like a strong man, whatever shenanigans. And obviously it's not deemed to be like good apparently by social media. So I have not watched the course. I have not. And also it's like a weird cycle where like you join the course, you can make money referring the course. So it's like it's a
pyramid scheme.
Yeah, pyramid scheme that works really well because like it attracts a certain amount of people and they just follow for it and they are happy with it. So some people don't like that. So, but what would be the step? You have to go into the dark web or build a community that is like enclosed in itself and tries to reach out. It's like kind of like a cult. You have to build a cult around your network. So it's like for us, it would be like if we are like getting banned, would you actually go out there and say like, okay, putting flyers everywhere, and then we have a special address where people can watch the podcast? It's kind of that situation. What is like. It would be doable, but would it be worth the pain? Because like we have the tools right now where we can host a podcast. We can go into Riverside and basically have like our podcast being recorded, then also edited by AI. Then we also have like all those tools with like, okay, we have OBS where you can just like download OBS, insert a couple of cameras, and you're good to go. And the tools are there, but the problem that I see is the community. You have to build a way to have the community refer and promote the product or the podcast or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you do. The community is what keeps you alive. And I think we've talked a little bit about like, a lot of it that a lot of people don't think about is that communities outside of your podcast. You should be out at events still. You should still be out like being amongst the people. And that's something that I think a lot of creatives, they kind of beat around the bush about is like, I can't just like be in the place that I do the thing. I have to also be in like all these other places too. I have to cross promote, so for this podcast, like you and I should be going out and talking about it when we go meet with people. We should also be doing other things on our own that also link back to it. So, you're doing your own cool video stuff. I'm doing my own branding and web design stuff. And that stuff should link into this. And it seems like that's the best thing is when you create this like larger network of things, it makes it so it doesn't fail. So even in Andrew Tate's example, he has like, 12 different ventures going on. And so when he got deplatformed, he still has money coming in somehow. He still leaves the doors open for his lovers that just are just like, oh yeah, everything he says is gold. They're still finding ways to pay him money. They're still finding ways to support him. So I think it just shows the importance of like you can't have all your chips in one basket. You have to have it all spread out.
And it still highlights how important social media is, though, because like obviously it's not easy to just cut out the giant thing, and like we don't use this at TikTok, for example. If you don't use TikTok, it's really hard to grow, and there's like seasons for every big platform. Like, oh yeah, this platform is really nice right now, digging it, and just like cutting that off is a major handicap because somebody else will fight over your attention, because like maybe you're in your circle and you're like, oh yeah, I have this podcast, but that person in that circle is like, yeah, do I listen now to them or do I listen to like the other things on the mainstream thing?
Yeah, and I think
it's a weird conundrum that people are in, and I'm like, yeah,
we're all in it, right? We're all in it. I mean, big companies, small companies. I mean, it's the funniest meetings in the world when like you guys have all these great ideas. We're going to do this marketing campaign. We're going to hit all these touch points, and then it gets to that point where it's like, okay, who's going to handle the social media? And the room goes quiet because it's like, because everyone kind of knows like. It's kind of a guerrilla. Like you're going to have to post, even if you're using a tool that's going to do automatic posting, there's just so much time that goes into posting, even for us to do these episodes, while we've got it down, like we've definitely cut our time down. It still takes a decent amount of time to get all of these out, even clips and reels take time to get out. So, and like to kind of keep that consistency, that day to day, it's difficult. It's a marathon. You talk to the Mr. Beast and these kind of big YouTube people, and they'll tell you, I had no success until 7-10 years into this.
Yeah, it's a weird thing too, because like everybody who starts out with like social media and they're just like, oh, I can make that social media account. I want to be a social media manager because I have an Instagram account. And then they're just like 200 followers or whatever. So mentioning one of my coworkers kind of sorry. No, I should not. But basically, she social media promoter has like maybe 5 pictures up there, and I'm just like, oh, you want to sell that as a service as being a promoter, but you're not using new media. And it's like the weirdest part when old media is trying to do new media stuff with old media rules, like there's like those cook shows, for example, or those selling things where there's like, oh, now we're talking about this product, what you see on TV, what 60-year-old people like, and that wouldn't fly on TikTok, Yeah. No,
it's true. It's you do. You get these like, you get a lot of people too that just feel like they have to keep. You have a lot of people. I mean, just to put it shortly, like you have a lot of people talking about stuff they don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like kind of the world we live in now, because everyone's about like, let's generate more and more content. So even us, we definitely dip our toes into subjects we literally know almost nothing about. And
especially with like the German law thing and whatever, or I didn't really read it. I was like reading the headline, read the comments. I'm like, oh, that was a thing apparently. I did not have the time to actually research it to a T, because who has that time nowadays, Do you have the time to like just casually read like 5 pages, And it's just like, no. Or fact check the pages too. Because like at this time, it's like we have to trust certain sources just and hope they're right.
Yeah, and you see it on large podcasts. I mean, like, look at the Joe Rogan Experience. Even half that podcast is him just being like, hey, Jamie, can you look this up? Hey, Jamie, can you look this up? And if you don't have a Jamie, if you don't have someone off camera that's going to Google the German news and going to Google, like, the banned words on YouTube and, fact check us in real time, it's near impossible. You just have to keep it going. And I feel like that happens a lot. Andrew Tate, for example, to go back to him, is a very interesting example where early on, he actually had really good advice for young men, and because young men in this country are having a hard time. That it is true. There's a suicide jump in young men. There is a lot of infidelity in young men now. There's a lot of things going on that is an emergency. There is alarm bells ringing, and having someone like Andrew Tate that is being kind of that strong male force is actually a good thing. However, just like a lot of the bad, big people in the past and history, they always have good stuff. There's a
good stuff for the crazy stuff.
There's a A-word, H-word guy that was from Germany that he actually saved that economy from the Great Depression, but he went too far. And then he started getting all the J-words together on trains and that led to the H-word. And so, so with that, Andrew Tate, same thing. Lots of great advice. Was actually like a great podcaster, and he had the whole like bling bling life of like, which a lot of people just attach to, especially materialistic places. But he just went a step too far. And
But as an artist, though, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
You flirt that line. You're exactly right.
So technically, you want to evoke emotions. You want to evoke like dreams and hopes and whatever. And that basically means lean into this because I'm the strong whatever-ish guy. And that means you have to be above everybody else. You have to be stronger or more creative. And as an artist, I feel like you have to push lines. You know, like Beeple, for example, he's throwing some art out there, and it's like kind of crazy. You know, and it really pushes the boundary, but it doesn't push it too much to be banned. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you supposed to do in your opinion? Should you actually lean in and just like risk an Andrew Tate or risk to be a Joe Rogan who everybody thinks now, oh, now you're talking crazy conspiracy stuff? Or do you should be the crazy videographer who's doing like some wacky stuff, or web designer with wacky pages, you know, like, oh, Comic Sans there and whatever, but this is my art, you know? Are you supposed to do this, or what is your spin?
Well, I think it's something that's very important to kind of separate too, is satire versus reality, right? So when Andrew Tate says something and he's yelling at the camera and being serious, you don't feel like he's joking. You don't feel like there's any satire there, right?
True.
Where you have some people that, they're making fun of stuff too, and I think that's something important for just people in general to really try to divide. I feel like we're in this society where people think everything's serious. Like, we have to be very careful to not joke, because someone out there may be like, no, they're serious. They're actually racist, or they're actually misogynist.
But here's the thing, though: somebody else, after you upload it to the internet, is in control about whatever happens to that episode. You can clip, cut, and the more extreme it is, the more views it gets. And it's really fine to have somebody else saying something extreme on your page, and you're like, how could he say that, you know? And you didn't actually say that, but it was just like cut together like that, and now you're in the hot water kind of, and it is a weird situation, you know?
Yeah, well, you always want to, like, I think like the best thesis statements, the best like first sentences of any essay or anything is it needs to have an argument. It needs to stand for itself. Something. It needs to be like, you have something rooted in an opinion. And I think some of the best stuff out there is a controversial opinion. So it's weird. Like, that's how you get engagement, right? It's like ever since Gladiator days, people love violence and brutality and gore. They just kind of do. Like, it's just innately in humanity. Like when you have a wreck, you know, that's why you have to look. Like, I want to see the carnage. So there is this kind of innate like want and desire for people to see that chaos. So it's this weird thing, right? If you want engagement, you can't be boring. We can't sit on here and just talk about the most boring topic known to man. But we have to be careful, because if people start to feel like we've gone too far or we're pushing to a negative direction, they just pile on you, it seems like. It seems like even the people have been trained to pile on you.
Yeah, so on the one side, it's also like, if you don't do those things, you just don't get the engagement, you stay stagnant, you don't get recommended. So it's like, you have to push the lines and you don't have to push the lines. It's so weird, because like, it's really hard to grow on social media, because like, obviously the most extreme pretty girl obviously will make it to the top way easier than like somebody who's not, you know? Or attractive people in general. So it's like, so you have to like lean into certain things and just like hope you have a good card. Then you don't really have to be too extreme, but it still doesn't help you if you're not extreme enough.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Because you're right. There's people that get around that by being attractive or
have skills.
Or comedy. Nice. Comedy is such a big thing. Like I do, you know, and I think that's why Joe Rogan's able to get away from stuff. I've seen so many times where he just gets to this place. He'll even say on his podcast, "Oh, I'm just a stupid comedian, so don't even listen to what I say." But then,
fair enough.
But then people are, though. So it's like, it's funny. He gets to play that game where he gets to be a leader. But then anytime someone's like, "Yeah, but you said this," he's like, "Whoa! I'm just a comedian. Why are you listening to me anyway?" So it's very interesting how you can create these kind of barriers for that too, which I think Joe Rogan's done a great job of like somehow creating this wall around him that's like, no, he's kind of impenetrable. Like, he can kind of say anything, and at least at the very end of the day be like, I'm just a comedian. Why are you listening to me anyway?
But here's the thing, like, on one side he's already canceled, and then one side of the society is just ignoring him because he said certain things, even though he has a right and an excuse, but they just don't accept it. You know, he said that, and now it's over forever for him on that thing. He just doesn't get canceled now, because like vast majority is like still pro, you know?
Well, what's interesting too is it's like the Obi-Wan type of problem. If you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. So that's kind of what can happen too. And who knows, with Andrew Tate, Ye, that may happen too. You cancel these people, they may become even more powerful because people like to go for the underdog, and people don't like censorship. So
yeah, it was like kind of scary too, because like Kanye was like also like, let's go and be president, and he's like building a church, cult, whatever, and it's already at a scary time, you know, and he's just like pushing all the boundaries, and maybe that is the thing that he wants to have, you know, like, hey, I'm saying something that I shouldn't say, so I get more reach in the social media and media in general, so I can attract more people to my cult and then run for president. What is like a very scary concept. It really worked well with like Trump and whatever. Like, say a couple controversial things where the one side that ignores you will talk about you because you said something bad, and then you win over people because like what you said was not that bad, but it was kind of bad. And you then on the other side, you know, you're saying then again nice things about it. Like you say something bad and then you say something nice about it, and basically it's contradicting itself. But you just get free advertisement from the other side that thinks like you're completely against it, and then you check that out and you're just like, hey, he said that, but he said somewhere else something different, what's positive, you know.
Yeah
So that can be scary. So you cannot pay, you know, if you want to cancel somebody, you don't mention his name at all, because like you could use that. It's a legit tactic that works. And
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's consistency of message. I think, can our words be misconstrued? Sure, but then I think with some research, people would very quickly find that it was misconstrued. So I think, yet again, it goes back to the importance of having that network, right? So if you get tanked on YouTube and people are just cutting up your clips and making you sound a certain way, well, then thankfully you have an Instagram and a TikTok and a Patreon, and you do stuff, and you're going out to the networking things, and you're out there, and you're just doing good work, and that's getting awards. That's a big thing I'm trying to do this year, is starting to put my stuff into award shows. Things like that, you know, you create that bigger network, it makes you impossible to take down, right?
Yeah, when you're impossible. But it's like kind of nice. On that side, what are your tools or tips that you have to build that system? Because like it's really hard to do all those things, you know. You have anything in your tool belt where you're like, okay, this is how I do business, and I'm just like diversifying my business to get recommendations? Because it's kind of like a social media. Like,
well, this is a great one of them, right? I mean, you know, for the longest time, and even now, I've struggled with, you know, getting the thought leadership out there. When I talk to clients and people, they love hearing me talk. They love hearing what I have to say. But to people that don't know me, they don't know that I have these views. They don't know how experienced I am. So I think this is actually a great medium. There's so many people, like we talk about how there's so many people that do podcasts, but there's even more people that don't. You know, there's so many people out there that have really good ideas, but they don't vocalize them. Nobody knows about them. The community doesn't know about them.
Yeah, and also there's levels to it. Like there's like some people who just have an audio podcast. This is like I think like one of the higher levels where you have multiple cameras, microphone setup,
tooting his own horn right now.
Yeah, it's feeling so good.
Patting himself on the back.
But there's levels to everything, and it's like it makes a difference, kind of, sort of, sometimes, you know. Obviously, I don't know how we should improve more besides like having a fixed setup, having more dedicated time. But obviously, there's always something you can do. But I'm like, I would love to have more tips on how to build that network for our work, because like obviously you can go out and do like the co-working space, what is like a one system of like getting clients through indirectly meeting people. It's very maybe ineffective, or it's kind of, I think,
if that's the main goal, then yes, it's totally ineffective.
But you would meet people who maybe need your services, you know. So it's a type of system where you need another system where you advertise and whatever.
Well, I think like, you know, like we've seen recently, we know a person recently that we both like, even just before this podcast, we're talking about how they're waving to each person they walk by. But like, can you think about if you just did that? If you took $20 to rent a co-working space for one day, just $20, and you made a rule for yourself, every single person I walk by in this thing, I'm going to introduce myself to.
This is a good one, actually.
For $20?
Yeah, no, that is actually like one of those old school, things you're supposed to do. You're on the countryside, you're supposed to say, hello, how you doing, whatever, like you're supposed to be a good human. You should know who is the person in front of you, and nowadays, big city life, you're just like, no, don't talk to strangers,
Yeah. One thing I've tried to do, and only when it's like, and I'll be honest, only when it's like easy to do, but like, it's like before I came here, there was a few days before I left on this trip, and I went to a cafe, and there was just this guy just doing illustrations. He was doing this cool like tattoo illustration, and I made sure to say something because I was looking and I was really impressed.
Hey, this kind of sucked.
Yeah, right. You kind of let me get my eraser. I'm gonna erase that for you.
Have you ever tried Photoshop?
Have you ever tried being an insurance salesman? No, but like but no, I was like, no, Sean, don't just sit here silently and not say something. At least go up and be like, hey man, that's really awesome, dude. What's your name? Cool. Yeah. Like, and even that was a cool interaction where he's like, yeah, oh, do you do this as well? I was like, oh, well, I'm a designer, and then there's like, he's like, oh, cool, because like, he recognizes that I can get him jobs, and even the other way, he can get me jobs, but it doesn't even get to that level. It's just, but that would have never happened if I didn't say anything.
Yeah. So let's say you saw it on Instagram. Who cares? You're like, in comparison, like you would see it on Instagram, and the comparison would be like, it's not as impressive as like that account, but the difference is now you saw that person in real life and you have a real connection, and it changes genuine. The game. It's a higher quality contact.
Exactly. It's way more genuine than even leaving a comment on Instagram, because people know that that's a game. People know that, like, so that.
But there's levels too. Like, you can make a thoughtful comment and it will be acknowledged.
Exactly.
Or you can spam fire emoji.
Yeah, fire emoji, hands up, ha 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 ha. Like that's, and what's interesting too is you go to these co-working spaces and nobody else is doing that. Like, nobody's walking around talking to anybody.
It's not easy. It's literally it's not easy.
Yeah. So it's like, so if you're out there and you're like shy and you're like getting in on yourself, you're part of the majority. I think most people are just terrified of people.
Yeah.
And but
it's a skill that you can develop too. Like, I think like it's one of the skills you should develop. Apparently, like when I was like 14 and I had to go to an internship, and first thing I learned was like, give a real handshake. Not too hard, not too soft, but do it the right way. Eye contact. There's several rules. Yeah.
This is super serious.
But yeah, it's like the basic rules that are very important because it's your first impression. And it's just like, sometimes you should like just practice the basic skills, to just look confident or feel confident. And I feel like with this generation, with COVID, everybody who's like practicing that stuff right now has a big advantage, like, oh, you meet somebody in person and you make a good impression and very comfortable, and somebody with a low self-esteem because of like COVID, not able to read faces well, and the stronger your impression, the better, you stick then, you're way more effective. So it's maybe worth actually going out and just practicing it.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of creatives, one thing I've started to think of this as is, I'm really good at generating value for clients. And when I get into a client meeting, and I know a lot of creatives are like that as well, where once you get in that client meeting, you're in this zone of like, I want to create value, I want to create value, I want to create value. But like, break it out of that. Like, why not create value for every single person you come in contact with? Why not be valuable to everyone? Because if you're valuable to everyone, like, we all know someone out there that like, they can't even go in a room without everyone just flocking to them and wanting to talk to them and wanting to like get their advice. It's because they create value, even if it's subtle value, even if it's just like looking them in the eyes and be like, how was your day? Oh, let's talk about that. And it's like,
without sounding fake, because that can go both ways. You have to be natural too.
Exactly. So it's like, it's a practice. So I think it's like, create value. Like, so if you go to the cafe, just see, how can I create value with people around me? How can I buy the coffee for the guy behind me? Can I like go talk to the guy that's doing illustration over there? That girl over there seems like she's really upset about something. Like, can I at least like tell her, hey, I hope you have a good day. Like, don't get in, yet again, don't get weird, but like, but definitely,
be nice.
But just create some value, even if it's just a little thing you throw at them.
Yeah, give something without expectations. Like sometimes you want to like you can say something nice and you're expecting like something nice back, but just say something where they don't have to follow up, so it doesn't become awkward. They can pick and choose if they want to say something nice back. So if you let it like like just like, oh, this is a nice picture, instead of this is a nice picture, but hey, can I follow you? And then you become intrusive.
Yeah. I think one thing that I used to do with one friend, we would kind of, because we both had girlfriends at the time, we did this little thing. This was years ago. This is probably 10 years ago now. It's been a long time. But but we would do this thing where we would just tell girls they're pretty for but nothing else. We would just be like, you look really pretty today. Not ask their name, not ask their number. Just say, hey, you look really good today. Just so you know. Bye. Have a good one. Know. And you know what? You would be like, oh, I'm sure there's some girls acted weird to that. Not one. Like they were always like, oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say. Be like, yeah, no worries. Have a good one. And then just like leave. Like, cause yet again, like when people get creeped out is when it starts to feel like you want something, that there's a reason you're doing it. So you do have to be careful. You can't have these obvious ulterior motives. But if you get better at creating value, like if you do it all the time, you'll get better at it and you won't even realize you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like
my favorite is like in America, like everybody's like, hey, how's it going? It's like, it's the standard hi, it's really easy to say. It's very socially accepted. And there's like also that like trend where people are like, hey, I really like you compliment something on the person, like the shirt, whatever,
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm like, that is such a nice thing. In Germany, it's not as common. Like you don't talk to strangers. It's a very weird thing. But here you have the advantage. You can't do that without being weird. And I'm like, I really like it. So
it is interesting. Yeah. Depending on places in the world. What's interesting is, Europe in general seems to be way more standoffish. In some ways, it's weird.
Yeah, but if you get close, they're way closer. So what is like,
exactly.
It's like a weird trade of cultures.
There's a lot of like touching once we're friends, but like if we're not friends, like don't even talk to me in Europe. It's weird. Yeah, I felt that too. But even when I was in Ireland, I felt that. I think. So with that being said, I think it's just like create value all the time. Like we're trying to create value online. That's what this podcast is about, right? It's about creating some value for you guys out there that are watching. It's about creating value for you. And then the hope is that you keep watching. And then the hope is someday that you're like, you know what, you've given me so much value. I'll give you this tiny little bit of value.
So here's my thing though, because like on the one side, I don't really care about the hopes and dreams, and obviously that they are there, we all have our expectations and wish outcome, but I'm not expecting that. What I'm expecting is like I'm spending quality time with my Sean, and I'm basically learning about like, hey, this is like me learning business with Sean, and you learn something, I learn something. It's like a dynamic where it's going back and forth, and maybe it leads to more. Like, maybe we get somebody to listen, and he's like getting a part of it, And if I can create value, like for you, with like trying to make some reels and shorts and whatever, and showcase my skills, it's like beneficial,
Well, yeah, I think it's it's passive versus engaged, right? So like instead of playing video games, why not do a stream of your video game on Twitch? So for us, we had such good conversations at the cafe. Why not make those into something? Like why just have those? So I think that's where we're like, we're gonna have these conversations anyway. We want to hang out, we want to catch up. So why not record it, right?
Exactly.
We're gonna talk about these things anyway. So might as well. I think that's where we come from, and it's good practice. Like, right? Hopefully, like the podcast. I think I've heard from people out there that it's gotten smoother. That we're getting better at it. And that's cool.
What I also heard was like, why am I like talking to myself?
Yeah. So for all of you out there, if you're watching this, leave us a positive comment.
Because Sean is not existing apparently.
We've gotten 2 negative comments, or not even negative, like mysteriously, weirdly negative, and they seem to be angled at Fitze, and I don't like that. See,
it's the accent. It's the accent. It was like a pro-American, reddish. It's like I have my stereotypes.
Yeah. So leave us a good comment. Just say anything. Like even do some fire emoji.
Hands up.
You can whatever, or be genuine. Reach out. We see you out there.
Yeah.
But it's been nice to see the subscribers kind of click in. I think we have 13 now, so it's like we're getting about 1 a week on average, or 1 every other week. So it's clicking up there slowly. But
I didn't post the reels. I still need to go on the phone and actually do the work. Like that's the thing. Like doing the work is the hardest part.
Yeah,
but it's the only way like to grow on like social media. You actually have to show up, do the work. Everything else is like whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, it's everything that like a lot of creatives have to describe to their clients, is that like you can do the thing, but you also have to tell the story. And so that's where the clips and reels are. Is that's us telling story. Like we're doing the thing, we're creating the podcast, but we have to tell the story to the people that don't.
Yeah.
And when you have an hour podcast, it's hard to get people to want to dive into that. So yeah, the clips and reels are great. I mean, hopefully we get better over the next weeks at just like getting like that to be kind of more consistent. We're going to, you'll see like, the titles maybe get better on this. You'll start to see some edits in this podcast. I think
the thumbnails are phenomenal. I really dig them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so keep, we're going to just keep chugging along here, get some merch hopefully up here soon. I think we're both just been so delayed with life and things that those types of things.
Life is a treat right now.
So it's been a lot, you have to prioritize client stuff before things. And but we're figuring
it's
out
a balance.
I think the big thing is just that consistency, right? I think we both agree with that. You just got to keep coming back, because if we ever have like multiple weeks where we don't do this and there's just too much time that passes, we're done. We're done in the water.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I look forward to more episodes, man. I think, I don't think we'll get deplatformed or anything. I think
I will save it. And I can show you so I do extensive research on YouTube, how to grow, what to do, what not to do. I'm like very about that data, how to place a video on the first page. That's all I know. That's like my biggest thing. And the things I learned is like, don't do this, don't do that because of X, Y, and Z. And I saw people doing it, and I saw people talking about it. I also had like occasions where like, if your YouTube account gets banned or canceled or whatever, your Google account gets canceled or banned, you have no idea how deep that goes.
Oh, really?
Like Google Drive,
Didn't know that.
everything. So it's like a thing that is automated. There's no customer service. I had that happen to me by accident. And I'm just like, I didn't do anything, but I got deleted and banned from Google. I'm like, why? I didn't do anything. And then I had to figure out how to reinstate that, because like if you have an Android phone, you are basically required to have a Google account, you know? So it's like, it's bunkers.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's I don't like it.
The more I'm talking about it, believe me, I've been there, done that, know about it.
We're deleting this podcast. We're never doing this again. No, but yeah, I mean,
There's loopholes. J-word.
J-word, H-word, N-word.
Basically.
Even just saying N-word, I think, is like going to get you deplatformed. That's one where it's like,
I think that's already listed too, because
just saying N-word, people, it's like, that's what's weird is like, where do we start to draw the lines? And like, I don't know. I hope we can change this. I think like, I feel like we're the people that like, we're seeing the car be invented and we're like, what's climate change? Oh, that's not a thing. And now it's everything. I just feel like the same thing's happening on the internet, where right now we're just like, oh, what's censorship and deplatforming? But it's everything. And in 20, 30 years, we're gonna be like, oh my God, why did we not push back? Why did we let these companies have all this control?
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see going forward. None of us know what's next. Nobody does.
The only good thing is like, if you grow big enough, it's like you grow to a point where they cannot cancel you over stupid stuff, because you can call them out. But if you're small, the problem is just like, you're small. Nobody cares if you're gone.
And for all the things that like kind of these negative forces and just famous people being canceled should teach all of us, is that even if you get canceled or deplatformed, you are not canceled. You can keep going on. It's like, so even if this podcast got canceled, we got deplatformed, I got all my Google accounts deleted, I can still go on and be successful. So I think a lot of people need to remember that too, that
because like it's the in-person connective.
And if we give YouTube all the power, if we give freely, then it's going to get worse over time. So we early on need to be very good as people, as creatives, to be like, no, you don't get all the power. I get to have some of this power. Because if we start to be like, well, I have to just make things for clicks, engagements, everything just becomes numbers and metrics and analytics, then
and nobody cares.
Then we have no power. Then we have no power. We're just handing it over then.
Yeah. Well, let's look forward for the social media future, where you have your headset on, you don't leave the room, and you're just like trying to make a good impression in a VR coffee.
Yeah, so it's we'll just have to see. We'll see where it all goes, man.
Got any more topics, or should we wrap this one up?
Where are we on time? I don't even know.
We're at like 58 minutes.
58 minutes. I think we could probably wrap it up. Yeah, so I mean, so it's been good to have these live podcasts. I'm going to be heading back to Colorado for the next one, and we'll be back doing some live ones here and there. I think we'll be having some stuff, so definitely just kind of keep an eye out for that. But I think,
where can people find you?
Yeah, so to find me, go to SeanCraigCreative.com, or you can do Sean Craig Creative into Instagram. I'm in there. And
what do you do?
And for me, I'm a web designer, visual brand consultant, working on nonprofit clients all the way to big national clients, and everything in between. How about you, man?
Well, I'm just a videographer here in the lovely state of Florida and St. Petersburg, providing like the What? My camera died? Nope. There we go. I'm just Fitz A, a social media agency, videographer, shenanigans thing. I'm bad with introducing myself. I'm so terrible.
All right, we're going to do that again. So you are Fitz A, and where can I find you, Fitz A?
On fitza.com or on social media, everywhere actually, on the Fitz A. And it's FITZAEY.
And then, we never really call these out, but let's talk about these real quick.
That's a prototype. You cannot show the prototype. You got to show the neon glow one.
So what are these things? Kind of describe these real quick.
So this is like a lens stand. Like it's neon colored. We maybe think about like calling it Aurora stand. So so let's put this here and let's see if no, we don't. Let's yeah, obviously this is not working.
So if you all look right here, this guy over here, he makes these beautiful 3D printed stands for your lens. So if you got $1,000, $2,000 lens and you need to display this, right? You got clients coming in, you got all this
show
gear.
Off class,
yeah, right? Like you don't want to put this in the drawer or something. What the heck? So he's made these beautiful stands. These can be found at Etsy. So if they go to Etsy, what do they search for?
Lens stands.
Just put in lens stands. You'll find these.
Yeah, well, will be top search results because like SEO is my thing. It's like my jam.
SEO is his thing, and so is deplatforming. Apparently, he knows it all, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, these stands are amazing. I mean, they're really cool.
Sure.
They're very cheap. I mean, I like these. I'm not a videographer, but man, if I had like expensive lenses, I would put them in this. I tell you what.
Actually, like they kind of glow too when you put light on them and like whatever.
Yeah, they glow. They're really cool. So, and he's developing new ones all the time. He's got some new ones. He's shown me some prototypes, and I'm excited to see kind of like where he goes with everything.
Yeah, and you said like a rare stand. Oh, I still have to.
Yeah, so we're talking. We've been talking about how to brand it. With him.
We did not follow up on that actually. The brand course that you wanted to do on the Patreon. And
yeah.
Well, yeah.
We got another hour if we want after this, but yeah. So anyway, so definitely go here. Put in lens stand in Etsy. These things are cheap. They're like what, $15, $12? Yeah. So buy these. I mean, if you're a videographer, you want to display cool stuff.
Yeah, or you make a review about a lens. It's really neat to have them being there. Looking pretty.
Yeah, so this guy's busy, man. We don't talk about all the stuff we do. I feel like we don't even do a good enough job of that, but we are. We're real busy.
I'm bad talking about myself. I like talking about other people and introducing them, how great they are, because Sean is amazing.
Oh, this guy's amazing too. All right, well, we're going to end this podcast with love. It's been great, man. It's been good being in the state of Florida. We'll keep this going week to week. And for all of you guys out there, don't deplatform us, please. I'm so sorry. Please, just like this and give us a good comment, okay? H word, all those things. I'm so sorry.
We got this. Bye.